Welcome back to Show and Tell. I'm Billy. I haven't been with you alone for, it seems like a few weeks now. It's been a crazy time for me. At the end of this episode, I'll bring you up to date on some of the cultural outings in the city that I now call home. That's New York. For those who may not have been here before, welcome. Now you'll know all my secrets. But it is a knitting show, and although I have a lot of other stuff to talk to you about, let me start off by showing you two of my works in progress. That's one. I'll come back to it shortly. When I look in Ravelry, I have 5 works in progress. One of them is that little orange teddy bear. I just have a couple of stitches to finish sewing it up, so I would call it like 99.99% done. It's still showing up as a whip until I close it out, that it's 100% finished. Another thing that I have is a powder blue summer sweater that's knit with a cotton tape by Lang that has flecks of dark blue dots on a light blue background. It's very interesting, very pretty yarn, but the way it behaves is so different from other yarns that I've worked with that I've had to rip out the sweater multiple times. So that's been in a timeout for a couple of years, but since I'm finishing up so many whips, I probably will get back to that this summer. Maybe. I'm not promising anything. But I do want to talk to you about the 2 whips that are active right now. This is one. I'll come back to it shortly. First, I wanted to show you, I never can remember the name of this one. It took me a long time to get that name right. This is like Charming Easy Sweater, Charming Easy Jumper, something like that. I'll put the name on the screen. Some of you probably already know the name. I can't get it into the long-term memory. This is the back of the sweater, and it looks very similar to the front, except that the way the pooling happened here, I thought was less attractive, so I thought, well, let me put that on the back. This, I guess it was supposed to be a self-striping yarn, I don't know. Because of this dimension, it created stripes different from what's down here. Anyway, I think it's all interesting that it fell out however it fell out. Darker purple on this side, lighter on this side. But I fell in love with the colors. And you might recall at Vogue Knitting Live in January, I looked for a complementary color to do this stair step in. And I thought buying one ball was going to suffice. I did all of this orchid color, the solid color, and on the front, I did all of that with just the one ball, and I still have this much left, but I already knew it wasn't going to be enough to work part way down the sleeves. I cast on for one of the sleeves. I intend to knit the sleeves 2 at a time, which is my preference, but since I knew I wasn't going to have enough yarn, this is what I did, and I'm telling you because I hope that it is helpful to some of you. I know the dye-light of the yarn that I bought from the ball band. I went back to the store that I originally purchased it from online, and I queried them, do you still have, I just need one ball in this dye-lot. They never responded to me. I called them on the phone thinking that that would make more of an impression, but I think for only one ball it was probably not so interesting for them. I don't know. Anyway, in Ravelry, I saw that there were a couple of people who had this yarn in my colorway and my dye lot in their stash. So those were my first go-to people because I thought they might, even though they haven't checked that they want to sell it because the default is not for sale, I thought, well, maybe just one ball they might be very happy to get rid of. I messaged 2 people through Ravelry. I heard from neither of them. Only recently did I hear from one who actually is using it in a project. So that would have been a dead end. But I looked for the stores who who list themselves on Ravelry as vendors of this specific yarn. And I started either contacting them on Instagram or at their websites to ask them, do you have this specific dye lot? And one place answered me, yes, we have it. Our minimum shipping is $10. The ball of yarn, I think, was $11. I paid $10 when I bought it in New York, but $21, 10 of which was for the shipping. So I was hesitant, but then when I couldn't make a connection anywhere else, I went for it. It arrived, I think, yesterday. It arrived yesterday. I love that it says that the bag is compostable. In my apartment building, we compost. And now it's the law in New York. Inspectors will come around and inspect your garbage in the big bins for the whole apartment building. They'll do like random inspections. And if they find compostable materials in there, you get a fine. And each successive fine is more and more. So nobody's going to want to violate this. We've been composting for years, I think since before the pandemic. So I'm pretty serious about it. Anyway, that's my public service announcement. I wanted to unpack this with you. So I have my mother's vintage scissors from the 50s, and I will cut this open. Well, these scissors are good for certain things, evidently not for compostable bags. Oh, here we go. Now let's see. Packing sheet. Thank you for shopping with us. I guess I should give a shout out to Spun in, where are they? Michigan? Ann Arbor, Michigan. Here it is. Let's see, I double, triple checked with them. 98533. And it looks, I think it looks like it should be the same. Well, this is going to be on the sleeves, so hopefully, I don't know, does it look the same to you? Hard to know. And who knows, maybe this outside one was exposed to more light. I don't know, it does look a little bit lighter, but we'll see when it's in my sweater. I think it looks pretty good. I'd love to know what you think. As long as I have it in hand, let me tell you that it's knitting for olive merino. The colorway is artichoke purple. So that's whip number one. My second whip for the Rink or the Lynx, again, if you're new to this channel, I had knit almost the entire sweater using stranded knitting for these three colors. It's a 32 row repeat. 4 of the rows use all 3 colors, so it's not technically Fair Isle. But the fabric was very dense, very beautiful, but at the end of the day, when I went to pull this over my head, the fabric was almost as stiff as cardboard. The measurements were right, but it had no give whatsoever. So piece by piece, I ripped the sweater out, and I gotta tell you, it was really hard to bring myself to come back to this. I ripped out one part at a time, reconditioned the yarn, and I started with, I think I did the front first. I don't know, whichever piece, might have been the back. I don't remember now. Go back and look at previous episodes. But I just ripped out that part and washed the yarn, hung it up to dry, tried to get as many of the kinks out as I could. and then I started to reknit that section. When I finished that, I did the same thing with the other section, and then I got to ripping out the sleeves. Now, I thought that I would be able to reuse my original ribbing for the sleeves. It's very deep ribbing. It's 9 inches. It's like past, well, on me that's about to the elbow. So it's much deeper ribbing than you would normally have. I had done a provisional cast on initially, so I was knitting mostly in this direction, but I left the bottom open in case I needed to lengthen the ribbing after I was all done knitting the motif section. But at some point I decided, okay, let me just bind this off and not have so many different things dangling. You see, I have bobbins, and this has a million ends to weave in, and I just had like too many things going on, too complicated. So I tried to do an Italian bind off. I shouldn't say I tried. I did an Italian bind off, but it wasn't of the quality that I demand of myself. So I ended up ripping out the ribbing on both sleeves. This is a lot of knitting. 2 of these. Ripped them both out, redid the ribbing, and I did a tubular cast on. And I want to show it to you up close because I'm quite proud of it. I think it really looks good, like almost like a machine would have done it. So that's this sleeve. Here's the rest of the sleeve. It's not finished yet, but I wanted to get started on the other sleeve. I couldn't knit 2 at a time because I would have had somewhere between 20 and 26 bobbins swinging all around. Actually, I don't even know if I have that many bobbins, so I would have had to concoct something, but I would have had like too much swinging around. So I went back to the other sleeve, redid this ribbing also, again, beautiful tubular cast on. And you know, I didn't want to get stuck on Sleeve Island, so I thought let me take a stab at this one. So it's very exciting to have all of that, but now to have this much of my sleeves, this knitting is so tedious. There's no chart. Of course, I can refer to this as if it were a chart, because it is the same pattern that repeats. 34 rows, 34 rows, 34 rows, or 32, whatever it is. You know, it does repeat. At this point, I don't need to refer so much to my instructions because I kind of know how it works. Like some rows are solid color, and if this is decreasing, it's decreasing in both directions, and then it increases and decreases. So, you know, I know kind of how it goes. I know this is a diamond, it increases a certain amount and decreases the exact same amount. And after the whitest stitch, you skip a row, and then this one little row of different color stitches comes up like Argyle would be. It would be fun if I was doing it for the first time, but like I've knit this sweater twice. Most of you would not even want to knit it once. I can assure you I will never ever knit it again. It is, I would have to say, the most complicated thing I've knit. My genie with 9 colors and different motifs in every other stripe, that's a Fair Isle on a size 1 needle. That was hard. That was plenty hard and tedious. There was a chart because Susan Crawford updated the original 1920s pattern. But with this 1940s pattern, well, as I said before, no chart, but it's the same motif that repeats, which gets to be kind of nauseating after a while. Now, why have I stuck with it? Why have I persevered through all of this? Well, first, I stretched this out over years. I didn't just like rip it out and then like re-knit. No, I put it away, I let it rest. And I did this in sections over a long period of time, the re-knit. It's tough. I mean, it's almost to the point of being nauseating. But the reason I'm doing it is I love the motif. And I have a pair of shoes that I purchased that I match the colors of this to. So it will be like a whole outfit when I'm done, I hope. Hope the shoes still fit and are comfortable by the time that happens. But I really love this design, and I'm hoping that I will love the sweater when it's completed the second time, and that I'll have a story to tell every time I wear it. I mean, I just love how it looks, so I'm hoping that when it's all done, that it fits this time and that I get much joy from it. So both of these things are kind of slow going. You know, I'm alternating a little back and forth between the two of them, so I'm making progress on both. And I expect that before the end of this year, maybe even before the end of the summer, both of these will be done. And of course, I always have next projects in mind. Don't you worry. I have the yarn ready for a couple more projects. Anyway, I do have other things I want to share with you that are knitting related, but not based on my knitting. So I stumbled upon an article on the internet that was written about people in Europe who have taken to knitting in the movies, and they've set up special screenings where it can be the knitters, so they can have a little bit of dim lighting that they're able to knit by while they're watching the movie, and it won't disturb the other people because they'll also want that little bit of light on them. I heard about this from my next door neighbor, who is a professional fashion photographer who goes to Europe a lot, and he said to me, yeah, it's a thing. And he thought it was a thing here too. I have not encountered any theaters in New York City that are doing this. So I was wondering, in your city, in your town, wherever you may be in the world, if any of the movie theaters have designated certain screenings just for knitters. Please share that with us in the comments. I'm sure other people would want to know. And I will put a link in the show notes so that you can go and read that article. Another item in the news not too long ago was the obituary of a woman named Rose Girone, I don't know, a Holocaust survivor who moved to New York City in, I think, 1947 or 1948, and was selling her knitting. She also worked in a local yarn shop, and I think that may be how she met some of her clientele. Would you believe she continued to knit and teach knitting until she was 102? I will try and find the link to that obituary. If you don't have a subscription to the New York Times, I'm not sure that you'll be able to read the article, but at your local library, you could certainly get it. So I'll try and get the link and put that in the show notes as well. Not too long ago, I had an opportunity to visit the Antonio Ratti Center at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. If you've been here before, you'll know that the Met is my favorite museum in the entire world, and I have been to many. I've been to all of the great ones, the Hermitage, the Prado, etc., etc. But it's very rare that you get to glimpse behind the scenes in any of the archives or storage areas. So this was an event that was organized by the guild that I belong to, and we were forbidden to take pictures that we would use on social media. They allowed pictures, but not pictures that I could share with you here. The Met is organized into 14 different encyclopedic departments. Now, the Costume Institute has clothing and has some Schiaparelli sweaters and many other sweaters, historical and so forth. But when it comes to just textile that's not garment, that is not owned by the Costume Institute part of the museum. It's archived with this Ratty Center. So we weren't able to see sweaters, but they did bring out for us some embroidered things, a pair of knit socks. But the thing that really captivated many of us was this large quilt. They had it framed behind glass on a big, I guess it was like an easel on wheels that they wheeled out. A very large thing. I would have to say it was maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 feet square. The dimensions are probably on the Met's website. In fact, I'm sure they would be. I will find a link to that item on their website that you can click on and go see pictures of that quilt. What's so interesting about the quilt, and I'm pretty sure the story will be on the Met's website as well, the pieces are shaped like blocks, but they have that 3-dimensional look to them, like tumbling blocks. And on the upper surface of each of the blocks, it was just a solid color fabric, a light colored, like off-white kind of fabric, if I remember correctly. And the others were all beautiful pieces of fabric, like upholstery fabric and fabric maybe from dresses. Every single one was a different little chunk of gorgeous fabrics. I mean, really like beautiful, I think 19th century. This woman who made it sent the little white squares to all kinds of famous people from her day. Abraham Lincoln, Washington Irving, the other names escape me, but many literary figures, many political figures, artists, all kinds of people. And she just put it in an envelope, sent it to them, and asked them to please put their signature on it, and I think the date. And then they sent them back to her. I don't know whether she gave them like a self-addressed stamped envelope back then, but a lot of people gave their autographs and sent these squares back to her, and she combined them into this just absolutely fantastic quilt. I can't imagine you'll ever see anything like it anywhere else. So that really was a very great treat, and my thanks to Maureen for organizing that. She's somebody I'm so pleased to know. Okay, I have a couple more little tidbit things here. So Trina, who has participated in a couple of different, I think maybe 3 different knit-alongs with me, sent me a picture of a sweater that has ribbing other than at the lower part. You know, most of the time when we have sweaters with ribbing, you start with the ribbing. You start with the ribbing and then you knit up. Well, my previous finished object, the one that I nicknamed the sock monkey, the black and white sweater with the red neckband, it has ribbing midway up the front. It's not ribbed at the bottom and it's not ribbed up here, but just at the waist, there's about a 1-inch band of ribbing going across. And I remarked that I had not seen that before. Well, Trina sent me a picture of another sweater that did that, another vintage sweater. And I'll insert a picture of that here so you too can see that. Okay, my last little tidbit is about a word that I came across. I think that I still get a word of the day delivered to me in an email every morning. Usually at this point I just delete them. I don't have time to read them. But I think that's where I saw this word and I thought, what is that? Moiety, M-O-I-T-Y. Well, moiety means containing moits. What's a moit? A foreign particle in wool, such as straw or bark. And I thought, anybody who knits with 100% wool, especially the ones that are toothy, like the Shetland wools, may find little pieces of moit in their knitting. And I thought, that's a word that we never hear. And I thought, we should know that word. So I have a photograph that I'll show you of some yarn with moits in it so that you'll get the whole picture. The reason why it's been so long since my last episode with just me and you is there's been a lot going on in New York, a lot of things of particular interest to me that I just couldn't help but run to. There was a screening of a new French film that won all sorts of awards at like film festivals. In English, it's called Holy Cow, and it was about an adolescent boy who is on a mission to make a really good Comté cheese. And he learns all the different steps of how to do it. And I don't want to spoil the ending for you in case you're able to see it. So while I was at this art theater, they only show classic films and art films, I saw in the lobby that the French film director, Claude Lelouch, was going to be at this theater in person to introduce his 1966 film, A Man and a Woman. You probably know the music of that film, even if you've never seen the film. I don't have a very good singing voice, but I'll sing a little bit for you and you'll know what I'm talking about. It goes something like this. Dun, 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 da, 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 da. Dun, 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 da, 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 da. Okay, that's all I'm going to sing for you. That's like the theme song of A Man and a Woman, and there's other really beautiful music throughout the film. But to have him be there, I snapped a picture of him because he was sitting right behind us before he got up to speak. It was dark in the theater. I haven't looked at the picture yet, but if it came out halfway decent, I'll insert it here so you can see that.
Entière. Ce film a changé la vie de tous ceux qui l'ont fait.
And there was also some publicity on the silver screen, so I'll put some pictures here. But while I was there, I saw they had like a whole program of his films that were going to be rolling out over the next couple of weeks. So I got tickets to go back and see Les Uns et les Autres. I had seen that film in 1981, shortly after it first came out, on a trip to Paris, and I'm pretty sure that I saw it without English subtitles. My French was not nearly as good back then as it is now, so I was really very thrilled to be able to see it in an American theater. They only, I believe, had one screening of it, and the theater wasn't even full. It was a pity. Anyway, I went back with my husband to see that too, and that also has fantastic music, not just Francis Lay, who did the former film, but with Michel Legrand. So you can imagine, music is really gorgeous. You could probably find some of it on YouTube. Lots of film in my life. You know my clapboard, my serious interest, especially in classic films. So this was just like an ideal, delightful week for me. And I'm glad I could share it with you. So I will see you next time around. Happy knitting. Enjoy the change of seasons. Spring is coming soon to a theater near you. It's still in the 30s and 40s in New York, but I'm quite certain that it will get hot and I'll be showing up for you in more summery sweaters soon, I hope. Bye now. Take care.